Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Gen X Life Lab. I want to say, first of all, sorry I've been offline for a hot minute, but there was stuff going on. I had a booth at a market here a couple of weekends ago, and then I had my latest release on my fiction books that I had to get finished up and off to my beta readers, edited, covers, formatting, all of that kind of stuff, and get it uploaded so that it can go live on its release date. So today I want to do something a little bit different. We've talked a lot about discovering what we think we might like to try, digging into ourselves to try and uncover the things that we once had a fascination with. So this whole entire thing is framed as an experiment because to me, and you may have noticed this as you started digging, you may have noticed that there's a little bit of doubt and a little bit of fear that starts creeping in. And then if you figured out something that you may actually want to try, then other fears start creeping in. Oh my gosh, what if we fail? What if we don't fail? What if we succeed? But this is way different from anything that I've done so far. And that's okay. But when you think about it like an experiment, it tends to quiet that noise a little bit. Actually, a lot, in my opinion. And that's one of the reasons why I approach these things as experiments. Because experiments aren't about failing. Yes, if you succeed and one of your ideas takes off and, does really, really well, then fantastic. But there is no such thing as failure when you're experimenting. There's only the collection of data. There's an old tale about the creation of the light bulb, and said they conducted all these experiments, 1,000 experiments, and was undaunted because they found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb, and eventually found the one that would make a light bulb. So that's why I frame this as an experiment. So for me, I wanted to talk a little bit about the experiments that I have going on, because I've listed them down at the bottom of the descriptions for each of the videos, but seeing them like that may not make a whole lot of sense. And actually some of them are changing, because that's how it goes with experiments. You do one, you figure out it doesn't work, and you decide you're okay to let it go and move on. So one of the experiments I've been doing for the longest is writing books. And I write romantic suspense books. And I've been at it a little over 3.5 years. In October, it will be 4 years. And because my day job, yes, I do have a full-time job, is fairly low demand, and I'm not married, I have no children. I have a daughter of the heart, but she is 40 years old, so she doesn't really need me a lot. So I was able to focus on writing books exclusively outside of my job. And sorry if I stumble around a little bit. This is the first one I'm doing, completely unscripted, so you're getting the real me. So I've been writing fiction books for almost 4 years, we'll say. And when I first started doing it, I had several books written before I ever published the first one. And then because I'm able to write fast and I pretty much know what I want, I can crank out books fairly quickly. So my first year, I released a book every month. Granted, 4 of those were written before I ever published the first one, but within 12 months, I had 12 books out. And I don't follow that schedule anymore, but coming up on 4 years, my 25th book goes live on July 1st. And I have followed a lot of gurus when it comes to writing books. I've taken a lot of courses, I've studied what other people do, and for a year, I was all in on trying to figure out ads and marketing and stuff, and never really got anywhere. So now I've decided that while I'm not going to stop writing books because I love it and it's fun and I love the bookish community, I'm letting it go to not really a back burner, but a middle burner. Because traveling to signings and going to all the events and constantly trying to promo books and all that kind of stuff, it gets expensive. And when you don't have a lot of return on it, then you have to make the decision of, do I really want to continue down this path as it is? And I'm pretty good about making that analysis and saying, okay, you've been all in on books for almost 4 years, and while you've seen some success, because I have had a couple of books become Amazon top 10 bestsellers, I've won awards for my writing, so I have experienced some success, but it's not enough to have me quitting my day job and do nothing but write books all the time. And honestly, because as we've talked about, I have a scanner brain, I don't think I'd be happy just writing books all the time, doing nothing but writing books. I need variety. So my author self is going to continue to write books, but it's not going to be my primary focus anymore. One of the other experiments that I've had in place is called Fiction Craft Academy. And it's where I created a whole bunch of workbooks for how to write fiction. You know, things like world building and character deep dives and, you know, even how to write a steamy scene. And when I first started writing, I looked for those kinds of workbooks, and the ones that I found that were some of the best out there, the gal who pulled them together, there was some really good information in them, but she had never even written a book. And that was 4 years ago, and she's still in process of writing her book. So I thought, you know, I want to give something that's a little more in-depth, a little more concrete, give the whys as to the questions and prompts that are given. And so, but I went the path that that person that I thought did a pretty good job did, and I put them all out on Etsy. And in the first 5 months, they did really, really well. But I discovered quickly that if I wasn't constantly, a couple of times a day, pushing content out, that I didn't get sales. So I began to analyze my business plan, so to speak, and discovered that probably Etsy was not the best choice. So I went and created a website and started moving stuff over there and went back to cranking out content for social media. And that didn't work as well either. So now I've decided that I'm going to pull everything off of Etsy. I may leave some of the core workbooks out there. Going to let the website, probably I'll transition it to some of my other projects. And I'm just going to put them all out in the various publishing arenas, and like I do my regular books. And I'm self-published. I'm indie all the way. Never even considered about to do hybrid or to go with a traditional publishing house, simply because of my experience. Some people need to find a publisher to help them do things. But my background is that I've been a secretary in some way, shape, or form for 40 years. And now, even though I'm not a secretary anymore, I still have all those skills. Now I'm an executive director in a state agency. I also have a background in graphic layout, so I know a little bit about Photoshop and that kind of thing. So because of my experience, I didn't feel like a publisher would be able to offer me anything that I needed. And seeing others who have gone with small publishers or gone hybrid, I haven't really been pleased with their results. Their covers weren't great. They had very little say in what happened in that area. So anyway, I digress. So Fiction Craft Academy, I'm going to take it and put stuff on regular publishing routes, like putting it out on KDP for Amazon and potentially going through other sites to get things out on like Barnes & Noble and that type of thing. So another thing that I have done is create a website called the Writer Toolkit. And it's got like a word counter. It's got, you can put in your text and you can see what reading level it's for, that type of thing. And I did that because of a guru. There is a person on YouTube that I have followed for a very long time, and I was always fascinated, but they are very much one of the gurus, one of the people who says, just go plug in this Chat GPT prompt and do this thing, and you're going to make money hand over fist. You know, it was before YouTube cracked down. It was one of those $10,000 in a month. And after that, you know, the sky's the limit. So I just thought, what the heck, let's try it. Well, this guru was pushing utility sites, and they used a typing test site as their example. And, you know, there's software you can get to tell you how much your YouTube channel is making, and they were making tens of thousands of dollars every month. And I was familiar with the typing site. It's one where you do a typing test, or you can do practice tests to increase your typing speed. So I went out and created a utility site, the Writer Toolkit. And I did all the things that the guru said to do, and clicked on Google AdSense, because that was the goal of the utility site, was to have Google AdSense on there, and people come to your site to use your tool, and then you automatically get paid through Google AdSense when they click on ads or look at ads or whatever. Well, lo and behold, shocker of all shockers, it's not that easy. I created the site, I added the tools, hit up Google AdSense and said, hey, come check out my site. I'd like to have Google AdSense. And they responded, nope, so sorry, your site isn't robust enough, something to that effect. So I added some articles and added a couple of new tools and did that thing, and went back and asked Google AdSense, come review my site again. Got rejected again. So I added a little more stuff, and the truth is there's no set it and forget it like the guru implied. You have to continually add to that. And I'm looking to make my life easier rather than more difficult. Having multiple social media accounts and having to upload all the time, it was difficult to keep up with. And that's why I'm kind of using YouTube. And then I take the videos I create here and have them chopped up into little shorts, and then I can just easily post them out to various social media stuff. Now, I still maintain my author Facebook page and Instagram page, but TikTok I've never gotten much traffic on TikTok. No matter what I did, no matter what I posted, I kept getting shadow banned, and it was just like, whatever, TikTok, I'm done with you. But now these little shorts, they tend to work very well. So the Writer Toolkit, I'll probably let it ride out as long as the domain is still good, but then I'll probably repurpose that website to be something else, or just completely let it go. Because again, this is an experiment. That experiment didn't work. It's not a failure. It just didn't work the way I wanted it to. So that's data. And it's okay to say, I don't want to put the effort into this anymore, and let it go. Experiments. If you find out something isn't working, it's okay to say, done with that. Write down the information and be done. So another one that I've had going on is called Ink and Binding. And that is where an author friend of mine and we decided to do market booths. Now, in our area, there is this really amazing market called Affair of the Heart. And it started out years and years and years ago, and it was meant to be like a little craft show type thing, and it got to be enormous. And now it's been purchased by a private company, and so it's a little bit different, but it's 3 days, 2.5 really, because Sunday's not a full day, of market. And there are people that do handmade crafts, there are people who make candles. We do, because she's a writer as well, we do a bookish booth. That means that we have blind date books and tote bags and, all kinds of book related stuff. This last one, she made these little library ghosts that were just adorable. And we also sell our own books, but that's kind of, mine are tucked in the corner, but our main focus, what we sell the most of, is not our books, even though we do tend to sell quite a few. So I took some videos. That's the market I was at weekend before last. And I took some video to show you what our booth looked like as we were setting up. And then I took another short video once we were set up so you could see what it looked like. And those are incredible for what they are. In a weekend, we cover our booth costs, which is expensive. It's about $600 for the weekend. And we like to have a corner space. But we do really well at those. And we do 3 a year, There's one in the fall, there's one in the winter in February, and then there's this one in the summer. The summer doesn't do as well as the others, but the others, there's also one in a town about 100 miles away that we do not go to. We went to this last year, but decided not to go back. It was just too difficult hauling everything up there and having to have hotel rooms and all that kind of stuff. Whereas here, if we need to restock, we can just bring it from home. Or if we have too much stuff at the end of the show, we can upload some of it and bring it back home rather than having to pack it all up at the end of the day on Sunday. So that is ink and binding, and I'm going to pause right here and I'm going to let you go watch those videos, hopefully if I can get them to upload, so you can see what I'm talking about. Because there might be something in your area that's similar, that you might have a craft or a hobby or something like that that you might take to one of these types of shows. I'll be right back. Okay, so one of my experiments is doing a market booth. Right now we are in the setup process, so it looks a mess because it is. I'll show you pictures of what it looks like after. We use a little tent frame, we have a little chandelier, we have some fairy lights. I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. I showed you all the booth while we were setting up. We got to spread out because our neighbors weren't able to come, so they brought in a filler. But this is our booth once we're all set up and ready to go. All kinds of bookish stuff. My partner is an author as well. So and this year we are right across from the Mimosa Bar. Okay, so now you've seen the booth, and I wanted to let you know that because I've talked about letting a couple of these things go, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be replaced, because I have a few other ideas that are percolating in my brain cells that I'm doing testing on right now. One of them is requiring a lot of testing, and it's been a long time coming because I started out making candles, and that was just too much work. Again, I'm not trying to make my life more difficult. I'm willing to learn new skills. And like I've said before, skills are the least of the equation because skills are learned. You need to focus on what makes you happy, what's fun, what brings you joy, what you just love doing. So making candles was a bust, and making wax melts. It's just, wax is very temperamental. You have to do double pours. You have to, it's just very labor intensive. And so I decided, no, that's not for me. So I'm testing another thing. Well, with each testing, you have to wait for stuff to come in. So that's where I'm at with that one. But I hope to be announcing it pretty soon because it's very close to being ready. And then just yesterday, I had another idea. I was watching, of all things, Investigation Discovery. I love true crime stuff. And there was this program about these two women. And one of them had started a credit repair company. And the other lady had seen that credit repair company, and she went and started her own. She took a course and started her own credit repair company. And things ended up being a very jealousy-driven, dangerous situation. And before you know it, true crime. Somebody's hiring a hitman to kill the other person. And anyway, but I just happened to think about the success that they saw in a fairly short period of time. So I went to ChatGPT. And I use it occasionally. I don't use it constantly. But I went to ChatGPT and I plugged in, kind of told them the premise of the television show. And I'm like, is there any market like that that is underserved? And it kind of knows a little bit about my skills and my background, because once upon a time when there was uncertainty in my job, I gave it my resume and said, hey, can you help me update this? Because I might be out of a job soon. So, and it gave me some suggestions of businesses that I might start based on my experience in that same type of atmosphere. It wasn't debt reduction or cleaning up your credit or anything like that. But it was a very intriguing idea. And so I've been doing a lot of research and coming up with ideas about it and how I could approach it. And so that is another one that's going to be coming soon. And then there's a third one that is kind of in the back of my brain. And it's, just because you have an idea doesn't mean that you have to act on it right away. I tend to like to think things over because it takes me a while to figure out what I want. That's why I ended up doing my own covers for my books, because it was very difficult for artists to work with me because it takes me a long time to figure out what I want. I have to think things through and I have to ponder things, even if I'm just doing it as an experiment. So there's a couple that are percolating in my brain. One I hope to announce soon. The other one I'm working on nuts and bolts. And the third one is just an idea that's floating out there. So those are all my experiments. And I would love to hear in the comments if you have come up with an experiment that you've been running, that you've thought about running, that you're doing the research on. Because do your research, do your due diligence. That's one thing I've learned in business, is that you have to know the lay of the land. You might not know everything, and I encourage you not to get stuck in analysis paralysis, but there comes a time when you're going to have to take the leap, but do some due diligence. There are ways to check keywords on Google. There are ways to see what trends are out there on Google. And if you don't know those links, I'll give you some of those links and explain the process of how you might go about doing that. But anyway, if you have an experiment you're working on, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you're enjoying this content, I would ask you to hit that like and subscribe button, and you'll get more information from me as we go along. And again, sorry this one was a little more stumbly, but you got the real me for once with no script. Anyway, thanks, and I'll see you later.